In the backstage, a woman named Rebecca walked down the hallway. She was making sure that the staff would be ready for the show. Then Beagle, and Mikey and Sarah walked by. She noticed Jason wasn't with them. Where's Jason? She then activated her walkie-talkie. Does anyone have a 20 on Jason? No, damn it. Just perfect. She continued down the hall. Then to the manager, Ben started to follow her. Rebecca, he said. Rebecca, do you have a minute? No, the show's about to start and I'm a kid short, Rebecca said. Well, I was going to do this gently, but since you're in a rush, I'm canceling the show. What? Rebecca said. Ben shrugged. Yeah, you've probably heard about my promotion this morning. No, I haven't. I've been busy. Oh, have you? Ben asked. Well, guess what? I'm the vice president of the program now, and the human bunch doesn't really have any idea to go for the bright future. Are you kidding? We're still a huge hit. Maybe, but it's a childish and stupid. I mean, the stars are damn kids, that's for sure. I want to do something cool and cheesy for our latest show, Ben responded. But we have tappings lined up for 3 weeks, Rebecca pointed out. Ben leaned forward. Not anymore. He then turned to walk away. Afterwards, Rebecca walked to the break room and saw Jason sitting and writing. Somebody find Cal and call him to get Jason on stage, she said to her walkie-talkie. Then walked away, unaware that Jason had been listening. On the show stage, Barb and her agent walked onto the stage to greet the audience. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Human Bunch, she said to the audience that cheered. Now, I want you to all check your tickets because we have an extra treat for some of you guys. If you have any stars on the back, then you're in luck. You get to stay after the show to meet the Human Bunch. And Steve, her agent whispered to her, and Stevie, don't forget Stevie, Barb said. Twilight, hurry up, Spike said, eager to check the tickets. I know, Spike, I'm checking. Then out of nowhere, they heard a familiar voice. Yes, we got the stars, sister. Twilight recognized that voice. It was Celestia, sitting between Discord and Luna. Celestia, Twilight exclaimed. Happy to see her mentor. Twilight, my favorite student. How have you been? Great, we've been celebrating Spike's birthday. Oh yeah, that's right, the tickets, Twilight said, as she reached into her saddlebag. Naystay and Poppy just checked their tickets and saw they have stars. Oh my god, Naystay. Poppy, we're going to meet the Human Bunch, Naystay said while kissing Poppy. Twilight then pulled out her tickets. To Spike's disappointment, they had no stars. Spike sighed in disappointment. It's okay, Spike, Twilight said. Fluttershy felt a little bad for Spike, but then she looked to her left and saw Barb talking with her agent. Upon seeing this, Twilight started to think of coming up with an idea. The camera crew then started filming. The announcer then spoke. Tidal Wave Studio Productions presents The Human Bunch, the audience cheers. Starring Beagle. Beagle walks onto the stage through the door, waving at the audience. Sarah slides into the stage, bumping into Beagle. Mikey swings on the rope, knocking Sarah and Beagle to the ground as the audience laughs. Jason doesn't appear on stage. Jason, the announcer repeats, but Jason still wasn't appear. Jason? Backstage, Steve was on his tricycle, holding a lollipop next to Rebecca. Where the hell is he? Steve asked. I just go out there and say Jason got stuck in Mr. Walker's fence again, Rebecca replied. The announcer continued, and featuring Steve then opens the door and rides his tricycle onto the stage, next to Beagle, Sarah, and Mikey. They wave at the audience. Is that a grown man dressed up as a child? Flash asked Spike. That's Stevie. Nobody really likes him, Spike responded. Steve then turned to the bunch. Guys, we have to get Jason out of Mr. Walker's fence again. The audience then laughs and comments and cheers as Steven and the bunch begins to wave at them. Our first scene will begin in a few minutes, folks. Sit tight. Fluttershy got up and turned to Twilight. Twilight, I hope you don't mind. I have something to do, she says. Don't be long, Twilight said as Fluttershy walked off. Then a couple of 10-year-olds are on the stage running some slimy challenge. They had to do through an obstacle course, avoiding the slime as it piles down on the Human Bunch. Twilight, I need to check in with Shining Armor, Flash told Twilight. Really? It's Spike's birthday. Don't worry, it's just be real quick, Flash reassured her. Can't you go one day without thinking of work? Besides, you're not supposed to have your phone out, Twilight pointed out. I'll just go use the restroom and use it there. Okay, but don't take too long, Twilight said. When the obstacle course was over, Rebecca was on backstage looking for Steve. For the love of God, where is Steve? He's in the next scene. Then he turns to Barb, who told her to go look for Steve. Barb then nodded and walked off. In Steve's dressing room, Barb knocked on the door to Steve's room. Steve! She walked in to see Steve drinking a beer. Are you drunk? She asked. No, I'm buzzled. So he responded. After all this, I'll be drunk, he said, pointing into his drink. Want some? Come here. We need you on set. Come and have a drink with me, Steve responded. Steve, seriously, they waited for the kids and they can wait for me. Steve interrupted, then took a sip of his drink. You know, that uniform of yours is really working out for you. It's working out for me, too. Barb was not amused, but then Fluttershy entered the room. Excuse me, she said. Madame, I am not signing any photographs right now, Steve interrupted. Okay, but I was actually wanting to talk to Barb, Fluttershy responded. Steve then set down his teacup and pushed both Barb and Fluttershy out of his room. Tell Rebecca I'll be there soon. It would have right on cue as always, Steve said as he slammed the door shut. Hey, I'm sorry if you got into any trouble, Fluttershy apologized. Nah, it's nothing. It's just one of our performers is being an a-hole, Barb answered as she walked down the hallway. Then she turned to Fluttershy. You're from the audience. You're not supposed to be back here. I know, and I'm sorry. And it's my friend's birthday, and he's crazy about the show, but we didn't get stars on our tickets. I was hoping I could pay you to let us meet the Mutt Bunch, Fluttershy asked. Barb thought for a moment. If it means a lot for your friend, I'll see what I can do. Thanks, Fluttershy said, both walking back to the audience area. Steve was getting ready for the next scene. He put on his golden tuxedo. He looked at the mirror. Showtime, folks, he said before taking his one last sip of his drink and throwing the glass away. He then exits out of the dressing room and then walks to Ben's office. He then hears Ben talking on the phone. Glenn, I told you to stop. The show is canceled, Ben said. Yes, I told Rebecca and she was angry. Ask me if I care. Of course I don't. The show takes up more than 2 stages. Not to mention what the tech will do as up for those kids. We're going to sell them. The human bunch is done. It's my call. And no one is doing a thing. Live with it, he said before hanging up. Steve was glad to hear about this. Truth to be told, he hated his job, hated the disrespect that he got for acting, and worst for all, he hated those 4 kids that he had to work with. He walked off smiling. Ben laughed, happy that he was finally going to do his show his way, but suddenly thump. Ben could have sworn that he heard the outside of the office window. He got up towards it and pushed it slowly. As soon as he reached for the window, the office door slammed shut. He turned down towards the door. Hey, he shouted. Then he walked over towards the door, but it was locked. Are you kidding me? Ben said. What the hell is going on? He then heard the noise coming from the window again, and then he walked towards it. Then he got there and reached for the curtain to pull it open, and revealed to be startled him. Mikey was right outside the window, staring at Ben. He suddenly felt something grab him by the arm and pulled him away. The show was almost over, and Jason and Mikey had brought up the spinning wheel onto the stage. The audience cheered, and Steve arrives on stage. Hey, everyone, he greeted. It's time to spin the wheel of endings. The audience cheers once again. I wonder how the show's gonna end, Mikey asked. Spike then turns to Smolder. I think it's gonna be Rockout. Land on Rockout. They always land on that, he told her. Steve also turned to Jason. Why don't you spin, Jason? Stevie asked, as he walked over to Jason and whispers, It might be the last time you'll ever get to do this, and smiles. Jason went silent for a moment. Then he turned to Steve. Okay, Steve, he said. Jason then puts his hand on the wheel and starts spinning it. The audience begins to chant, rock out, rock out, rock out, rock out. The wheel spun for at least 12 seconds, and then it landed on rock out. The audience cheers as Steve and the human bunch got their instruments, and they all started to sing. As the song continued, Fluttershy and Flash returned to the audience section. Where have you been? Twilight asked Fluttershy. You'll see, Fluttershy answered as the audience continued to sing along. That is when Steve closed down to Jason. Jason spun and tripped over Steve and his guitar. The audience laughed. Spike saw in this and returned to Twilight. It seemed to be on purpose that Jason would never hurt anyone on purpose, he told her. I'm sure that's just a part of the show, Spike, Twilight reassured him. The human bunch continued their song, as Stevie laid on the ground groaning. Whenever the song was over, the kids bowed. Give it up for the human bunch, the announcer says to everyone. And don't forget Steve. Steve then sits up and waves at cheering audience and leaves the stage, following as the bunch, Barb, entered the stage with her agent. Thank you for coming, everyone, Barb said. If you have any stars, sit tight, and the rest of you, Doug, will show you the way out, she says as she pointed to her agent. The audience, excluding Naystay, Poppy, Celestia, Luna, and Discord, got up and started to follow Doug. Are you excited? Poppy asked Naystay. I sure am, Naystay replied. Before Twilight, Spike, Flash, Fluttershy, and Smolder could leave, Barb stopped them. Where do you think you're going? She asked. We don't have stars in our tickets, Spike answered. Do you really think the human bunch wouldn't want to make their biggest fan on their birthday? Barb asked him. Spike then looked up at Twilight in surprise. How did you know? Twilight asked. A bit of silence. Twilight, Light, and Flash turned to Fluttershy. I may have talked to her about it, Fluttershy answered. Well, let me meet them, Flash said. Follow me, Barb said. When everyone else was following Barb, Flash checked his phone. I'll be right behind you, Flash said before walking off. What could be more important to Flash right now? Outside of Steve's dressing room, Steve was drinking some more beer and he glad that the show would be ending soon. After a few minutes, he saw 4 kids from the human bunch. Well, well, well. Look who it is, my partners. The kids stopped when they heard Steve and turned to him. I was drinking a toast for our cancellation. What? Jason asked. Steve walked over to Jason. The show's done, he said. Because the network thinks you suck, you'll never be able to perform in front of the audience again. Well, what are we supposed to do now? Beagle asked. Leave, Steve answered. Ben is going to sell you craps anyway. The kids were appalled. Steve raised his bottle of beer. Cheers to you. I hated every second of working with you people. He then took another sip and walked over to the dressing room and shut the door. What do we do now? Mikey asked. Jason's eyes then turned red and said, Looks like those free ponies and a Chicana quest aren't the only things we'll finish tonight. Inside Steve's dressing room, Steve continued to drink as he looked up in the mirror. I am glad to be finally rid of those beeping kids. He then thought. Suddenly he heard footsteps and he turned to look. Jason was standing next to the calendar with his arms crossed. You gotta be kidding me, Steve said. Jason just stood there as Steve walked up to him and stared at him in the eyes. Get the hell out of here, he said. Jason did not respond. Steve then took a drink of his beer and sloshed it around in his mouth for a bit. He spat the beer right in his face. Jason did not flinch. Steve then continued to glare at Jason. Goddamn kids, he said before wiping his mouth with his hand and then wiping back to the mirror, continuing to drink. Jason had enough. He reached to the counter and picked up a stick ruler, and Steven sat down with his drink and looked at the mirror. He saw Jason right behind him in the reflection. He turned around. The moment he did, Jason grabbed Steve by the chin and raised the ruler up and plunged it down. Jason then shoved it down, causing Steve to choke. Of course, the most graphic scene was that Steve was choking in his own blood. But of course, Steve then unfortunately died from gruesome death. At the backstage arena, Barb led Twilight, Celestia, Naystay, and the others for the backstage area. The show was first aired in 2017. It was the most popular kids show ever since. Anyone know that show? Well, duh, Naystay said. Ben 10, of course. While Barb was discussing the show's history, Twilight turned to Fluttershy. This is the sweetest thing you did for Spike, she told her. Fluttershy blushed. Well, it was the least I could do for Spike. Considering his brother-in-law couldn't really want to be with him on his birthday, he'd rather be at work. Well, that's not true, Flash, who just wants to be with us, Twilight objected. Then where is he? Fluttershy asked. Twilight then looked around and realized Fluttershy was right. Flash was not with them. You stay with Spike and Smolder. I'm gonna go look for Flash, Twilight said as she walked off. A minute later, the lights then went out. Don't worry, everyone, I'm sure it's just... But before Barb was interrupted when the lights came back on, revealing the 4 kids, the human bunch. Everyone was excited to see them, and they clapped their hands. If you all get in the line, I can make sure you get pictures with the bunch. Naystay and Poppy moved up to Sarah and Jason, as Barb got the camera ready. After the pictures were taken, Naystay and Poppy moved away from the bunch, and then Naystay then realized a red liquid on Poppy's cheek. What's on your cheek? Naystay asked Poppy as she rubbed it off with a hoof and looked at it. I'm not sure. It must have rubbed off of Jason. I bet it's strawberry from that sloppy time of the game show, Naystay said as he licked his hoof. Nope, that's not strawberry. I don't know what this is. Discord turned to Fluttershy. I hope you don't mind, Fluttershy, but I am going to go with Celestia and Luna to look around for a while. That's okay, Fluttershy answered. Discord and Celestia and Luna then started walking away. Barb noticed. Wait, you're not supposed to go back there, he said, starting to follow them. Come on, Poppy. We should probably explore a little too, Naystay said, and they both went off, leaving Fluttershy, Spike, and Smolder alone with the human bunch. Spike saw that Barb was gone and the only one that was there with the camera. What about our pictures? Spike said to Fluttershy. I'm sure they should be in the back room. Besides, this kind of stuff is cool when you have the bunch all to yourselves. Spike knew Fluttershy was right, and he turned to Smolder. Come on, he said as he walked up to the bunch. Hi, I'm Spike, and this is my friend Smolder. Sup, Smolder said. They all looked at Jason with the beer in his face. What is all that? Jason's all wet? Why is he all wet? Spike asked, as Jason turned to face Spike and Smolder. You don't have to introduce yourselves. We know who you are, Jason said. We've seen you amazing things that you have done. Really? That's awesome, Spike said. Jason raised his hand right in front of Smolder for a high five. Smolder gladly gave it to him. Spike then looked around and noticed that Sarah was gone. Where's Sarah? Spike asked. Oh, little did Spike and Smolder know that Fluttershy was also gone too. On the outside of the building, it was 10 p.m. and Flash was on his phone talking to his partner, Flower Petal. Look, it's my brother-in-law's birthday and I can't come right now. There's nothing I can do, I'm sorry. As Flash finished the phone call right then, Twilight came through the door. Hey, she said, what are you doing out here? I've been looking all over for you. I told you I had to call in the office. There's some stuff going down, Flash said. You mean Flower Petal working on a Saturday? Twilight asked. I didn't say Flower Petal. Why would I say that? That, Flash asked nervously. Because she's your partner, who is always in the office. Right, that's right. That is, Flash said as Twilight continued. Are we ready to go in yet? Yep. You want to come with me and I'll get the others? Twilight asked. Okay. When Flash passed Twilight, she took her phone and the magic and started to look at it. Twilight, wait, no, please, Twilight! Twilight turned off the phone and saw what shocked her. Pictures of Flower Petal in bed. Oh my god, Twilight said. I can explain. Flash, can you explain this? Twilight said. You did what with her? Flash was silent. I can't believe this, Twilight said sadly. I swear, it was just one time, Flash promised. There's hundreds of these of you and your partner. God, you're such a cliche, Twilight said, clearly upset. It was too good to be true, a new voice said. Flash and Twilight turned to see Fluttershy. I always knew you were a piece of crap. Hey, you watch your mouth, Flash said. Fluttershy, go back in, Twilight started, but it was interrupted by Fluttershy. You know what? Twilight stands up for you, defends you and tells everyone to give you a chance. And the whole time you've been cheating on her, you should just, what? Bunny Philly? Flash asked. Okay, stop. Just stop, Twilight said. You know what? Flash asked Fluttershy. You're just a 20-year-old animal fooler. You're just like, okay, maybe I should. Okay, stop. Go back inside, okay? Twilight asked as Fluttershy turned to Flash. This is just between us. Us? Flash asked. Twilight has never been in us. There was always been you, then there's Spike, and then Nix, us. What is this, a joke? Twilight then looked up at Flash with sadness, and eyes were about to tear up. You know what? You'll get the kids. I'll be waiting by my portal, okay? Flash walked off. Twilight sniffled as she was about to go after him, but Fluttershy stopped her. Twilight, stop, please. He's just a dumbass, Twilight said. I know, Fluttershy said. Twilight then shed a few tears down inside. You know what? Let's just get Spike and Smolder, okay? Twilight says. Okay, they went back inside to get Spike and Smolder. Flash was walking down the path and started to call Flower Petal. Hey, Petal. Yeah, the night's free now. Little did he know that a certain 16-year-old was nearby, watching him.